Okay, and we are live. We are, in fact, late because Tanner was late to the show, so we can't really help that, guys. But we have a great show for you tonight, another episode of the Stock Tank, where we are going to be talking about Duolingo. And to present Duolingo is none other than Chris, Data Driven Investing. Welcome.
Hey, gents. How's it going?
Good to see you, Chris.
Let me change this order because this is going to hurt my brain. That's better. And Roy, do you want me to throw this up on screen?
Yeah. Chris is going to pitch Duolingo for us. And to make things even more fun, we're all winners if we get to do bingo. I created a bingo card. So one of these, it didn't work. Sadly, I thought Tanner was going to be late. He was barely on time. Chris says Palantir. PEG, the word is used. 40% is mentioned. TikTok, user retention, freemium, EdTech, New York Times, billion, contractors, AI first, deleted post, of course, free space, which I almost put Tanner as late here. Now I'm glad I didn't. Chat, JK Rowling, analysts, woke, EBITDA, subscriber growth, hype cycle, rule of 40, SoFi, TAM, OpenAI /ChatGPT. So if you guys want to play along, go over to my, you'll see my tag underneath my name. Just go on my profile, download that, grab it, put it up on the screen. So.
You should have Jeremy as one of these squares because I guarantee you that one's going to come up.
Jeremy's the free one.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's a picture of Jeremy, right?
Bingo sounds like a 2B production. Yes, exactly. Okay.
Jeremy / Joseph Carlson.
Duo bingo. Man, I missed the opportunity. I'm mad at myself now.
It's all right. We got it up on screen. Do a bingo. That's what it is.
So if we do get one, you guys just type it in the comments while we're going. I'm not going to interrupt while Chris is talking or other guys are talking. I'll just flash this and show that it's crossed out.
Oh, I love that.
So, okay, Chris, I'm going to throw up your presentation in just a second. Before we get, I think we did invite Jeremy. Jeremy is welcome. If he is in the chat, he is more than welcome to join. Thank you, Austin, for the $5. I don't know who ever got that.
Me. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. I just appreciate that. Thank you.
If I get a hold of him, maybe we can get him on or something. I don't know, but maybe that's if we can run a little bit longer. Chris can pitch his whole theme, and then we'll invite Jeremy, and then he can tear it apart.
Or maybe
I don't look like whoever said that I look like I was short NVIDIA. I'm offended.
You look like you were short NVIDIA. Yeah, that's funny.
I hold NVIDIA. I have a long position in NVIDIA.
Okay.
All right. Should we do it? I'm excited.
So, hold on. I'm just sending a text to Jeremy if he wants to come on. Okay, so before I put up this presentation, what I would love to know, Chris, is when did you buy Duolingo? And if you're comfortable sharing as a percentage of your total, like how concentrated are you?
Yeah. Give me a second to find that information. So it is a top 5 position for me. First of all, so this is a pretty big part of my portfolio. I started buying at the second half of 2022, so a long time ago, and accumulated most of my shares down there. Had an average below 100 for a long time, and then eventually they've done so well that I continue to average up. So, which I'm currently doing also. So I've been following the company for 3.5 years. I've listened to almost all their earnings calls because that was pretty soon. They went public about the same time as another company whose name is on the bingo card, who we all know and love. I think they went public in June of 2021, which again is the same as SoFi. There you go, Roy. And then, and it's a top 5. Let me see. Give me a second. I'll pull it up. What percentage approximately of my portfolio this is?
The bingo card's a little jaded now that the people who are... It's like if Jerome Powell knew that the people were doing bingo cards about him.
or the...
was Duo or
No, it was not a SPAC. It was a regular IPO.
There you go, Ed.
If it was a SPAC and it was up at like the 300s, that would have been the greatest SPAC of all time.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we get started with this then? Does anybody
Let's
have
do
any
it.
other, like, preliminary questions? Tanner, I think you're the only one that's not in it right now.
Correct. So it's kind of like a reverse stock tank where one person comes to pitch to 3 panelists. It's like 3 guys are pitching to me. And who knows? By the end of this hour, I might buy in 24-hour markets. Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe I'll short it.
Yeah, I don't think so. But just for full disclosure, I have a very small position. It's like 2%, just shares. Bought it last week. I'm not sure what I'm doing with it yet. So I'm open-minded in this. I like Duolingo. It's one of those that I thought I missed. I feel like that this is an opportunity to get into it, just because it's kept running. There are some concerns that I have, so I'm looking forward to hearing from Chris because he knows a lot more about this company than I do. But it's going to be a fun one tonight. And Tevis, I know, will have an open mind too. So,
yes, I definitely will. All right. Chris put together a presentation for us. Let's do it.
All right. So Duolingo's been selling up a lot recently for reasons that we'll get into in a minute. I don't think they're dead. I am bullish. I am buying and averaging up right now. So let's go through the reasons why. These are all the things I'm going to talk about. Nobody cares. Okay, so first, what does Duolingo do? Okay, so everybody should know, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know Duolingo's brand. Their primary thing is that they are a freemium app that, for the most part, teaches people to learn a second language. Actually, most of their users, that second language is English, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But they're pretty much the #1 name. And they were mobile first back during a time when most people were going kind of website first. They built this brand, they built this app. They came public, like I said, in 2021, right? So you go through, it's an education platform, right? You click on these, they teach you different lessons, you learn vocabulary, there's other things that you do inside of the app, but primarily what they are is a language learning app. But they have started to expand. They have Duolingo ABC, which is for like little kids. My little kids use it. There's Duolingo Math, there's Duolingo Music, and now Chess, which we'll talk about just a tiny bit. But all of those except for Duolingo ABC is, I also said freemium for you. You missed it. Oh, you got it? Okay. Anyway, so all those are in one app except for Duolingo ABC, but just because it's a different target audience. But that's kind of what they do. For the most part, I don't think anybody kind of has any questions. I guess, how do they make money? So there's subscribers so there's 3 tiers. There's a free tier. There's Duolingo Super, which kind of takes away the energy bars or the hearts, makes it so that you can play as much as you want. There's no ads, etc. And then there's Duolingo Max, which gives you access to kind of some of their AI features. And we'll talk about those later. Yeah, so that's them. What is my thesis? So my thesis on Duolingo is that they are the British cycling team of SaaS. So are you guys familiar with the story of the British cycling team?
not
Literally nobody gets that reference.
Okay, good. That's what I like. So this guy that you see in front of you is a man by the name of Dave Brailsford. Okay, so in 2003, he was made the performance director of British cycling and the Olympics. So this was, about 10 years before the Olympics were coming to London in 2012, and they wanted to build a really good team. So they put this guy in charge. And up until that point in the history, in their entire history, Great Britain had they'd won one single gold medal in track cycling, right, in the Olympics. In 2008, in the games in 2008, so 5 years later in Rio de Janeiro, they won 7 out of 10 cycling gold medals. And then they repeated that feat and won another 7 out of 10 in the 2012 London Olympics. So he was super successful. Then, not only that, so and then in 2010, he was then appointed the general manager of Team Sky, which was Great Britain's Tour de France team. And they never had a British winner of the Tour de France. They won in 2012, 2013, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. So the question is, why were they so successful? And what did he do that brought all that success? And what it was this maniacal focus on compounding marginal gains. Okay, so this is a quote from him. He said, the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything that you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improved it by 1%, you'll get a significant increase when you put them all together. So just little tiny incremental improvements over and over and over. And so they started to do this with like the obvious things, right? Like your how you pedal in your cycle and making sure that you're transferring the force to the bike and all of your endurance tests and other things. But they went much further than that. So they looked at like their uniforms and like the different materials on the different pieces of the uniform in order to get aerodynamics. They noticed that their biking maintenance schedules got better when they cleaned up dust. So they painted the floor white where they kept their bikes so that they'd notice all the dust and clean it up. They wouldn't shake hands during the actual Olympics. They hired a surgeon to teach them about personal chefs for each individual person and tracked all of their weight like day by day and planned out their meals. They even brought their own mattresses and pillows in the trailers with them. Like during the Tour de France, they would do this. So that they would get a good night's sleep and they'd have consistent rest every night. So like just a maniacal focus on every last tiny little detail. Anyway, next question for you guys. Has any of you learned a language?
Да, я могу говорить по-русски.
Oh, you speak Russian?
Ajá.
Y también puedo hablar español.
Okay.
Y hablo un poquito español.
Sí, señor.
Or
Merhaba arkadaşlar.
Where did you learn Russian, Roy?
I took 4 years of it in high school.
Okay, cool. So what's the worst part about learning a language? What's the hardest part?
sounding like an idiot when you're learning.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when I was a kid and learning, like in high school, I was prideful. I didn't like to make mistakes. So, yeah. So
there's the worst part is just that you have to make. So I've learned two foreign languages. I speak German and then I speak German fluently. I speak Spanish well enough to get around, but I wouldn't say fluently. The worst part is that, and when I was learning German, somebody told me this, and it might not be like factually exactly true, but directionally it's true. They told me in order to actually become fluent in a language, you have to make at least 10,000 mistakes in that language. And that seems about right? So you just need tons and tons and tons of repetition. And so Duolingo's mode, the reason that they get things, that they grow so much and that they get things so right and that they teach people is that they've designed an interactive learning platform that takes the monotony of learning things like foreign languages and that takes the monotony of learning things like math out of it, right? They make it fun to have mistakes and they keep you coming back and engaged. So there is a podcast that anybody who's interested in investing in Duolingo should listen to. So you can just Google why Duolingo worked and you can find it. It's an interview with Luis von Ahn, we'll talk more about him later. He's the CEO of Duolingo and one of the co-founders. But it's really good. So I pulled out a couple of quotes. So he said, the very first question he asked him is, why does it work, right? And what Luis von Ahn said is the hardest thing about learning something by yourself is staying motivated. And he said by a margin. He's talking about like the margin between that being the hardest thing and then the next thing, the hardest thing. And then he said that this was a really interesting framing. So he says most education apps try to teach you something and they concentrate on learning outcomes. And then they said that makes sense, but that's not the hard part, because anything that you can actually learn from a book. Do you want to learn quantum physics? You can do some from a book. It's just nobody's doing it because it requires reading a quantum physics book, right? So, but if we can turn something that people actually want, turn it into something that people actually want to do, that can be really powerful. And that's their big insight. And so the reason that Duolingo succeeds, and the reason that I don't think that AI is going to disrupt them, is because the reason that people come back to the Duolingo app is not because they want to learn a language. That's what gets them to the app. What gets them to stay and to continue and to build revenue is the fact that people who use Duolingo want to use Duolingo. They don't want to go to ChatGPT and they don't want to use something else because it's like it's gamified, it's fun, it's productive, and it helps you to feel good about yourself. It's something that you can do on your phone. Like if my kids come to me and they ask me for screen time, I say no. If they come to me and they say, hey, I want to practice my Spanish on Duolingo, I say yes, right? Like, because it's something productive that they can do on their screens. So that's kind of the that and the way that they arrive at this again. So this is why they win, and this is how they win. So how they win is they test absolutely everything. They A/B test. They are constantly A/B testing like hundreds of things all the time. So this was from a blog from them about their testing. So think of any feature you come across while using Duolingo. The animated skill icons are the result of an A/B test. Adding the different leagues to the leaderboard, also an experiment, right? The amount of tears that Duo cries when they notify you, again, an experiment. Like everything that they do, like so it comes down to the length of the lessons, the amount of questions in the lessons, the home screen, what it looks like, the icons, the animation, like the frequency of the notifications that they send you, which is often the messages that are in those notifications. All those are A/B tested. The friend streaks, the leaderboards, like everything that you can think of that you can A/B test within an app, they test it and they retest it over time to make sure that it's actually accurate. And what they're trying to do, the thing that they're trying to absolutely maximize in these tests is not near-term revenue, it is user retention, and it is and it's long-term value. So they maximize to LTV. There's over 8 million people who've used Duolingo every day for over a year. Like that's a crazy statistic that they have that type of retention even within their DAUs. And the thing is that the app is like so addicting that they actually expand the TAM. So one of the questions they talk through in the podcast is the fact that they have made it so that people who come to Duolingo didn't necessarily. So I think 80% of the US users that they have on the app weren't learning a language before they tried Duolingo. Like that's an incredible statistic. And so it's not only that like, yeah, there's a language learning TAM, it's the fact that the TAM expands because it's so interactive and because it's so addicting. Here's an example of kind of some of the data that they get out of these tests, right? So these are two different experiments. There's an A and there's a B, and they test them and they say which one, has people start more apps. Sometimes more people will start the lesson, but less will finish, and they want to maximize like the time that you spend on the app and other things. And again, here's another example that they gave that is an example of something that increased their revenue. So the A test, this was, if I remember correctly, what it was is if you were offline and you clicked, they allowed you to click. So usually when you're offline, there was just grayed out and you couldn't use it. This was previously. This test was if you're offline, they still had it colorful, and if you clicked it, then it popped up an ad that said, hey, you can do this if you pay for like the upgraded tier. And it turned out that the monetization was higher, but they never actually launched that feature because it negatively impacted their learning habits and behavior. So it increased their revenue, but it decreased their activity, and they saw more churn. So even though it was successful from a monetization standpoint, they didn't do it, and they didn't continue to iterate on it because they want LTV. They don't want short-term gains. This is one of their more recent tests, right? So this is previously and for years, and actually in my app, it's still this way that they had hearts for the free tier. So you had 5 hearts every time you made a mistake, you got rid of a heart. And then once you ran out of hearts, you were done for the day, unless like you used your gems to refill it or something. You had to either pay or wait for the hearts to refill it. It takes about a day. So what they've done is they replaced a carrot with a stick, right? So they moved from the hearts, which were a stick, they moved from a stick to a carrot. They replaced the stick, like the consequence when you miss, with the carrot. So now you actually get, if you get like a streak of 5 or a streak of 10, you actually earn energy during your lesson. So it takes energy to start a lesson, and then you earn energy if you get things right. It's increased. This has just gone live in like the last couple of months. It's increased revenue, bookings, increased daily active users, and median time spent on learning. So they're going to be rolling this out in the next few months to all of their users, right? And the other thing that this will do is there's a certain cohort of people who've gotten really good at kind of as using the free tier for a long time, and because they don't make any mistakes. This takes those really active people. The way that they described it on the earnings call is they said, if you're going to be on our app a lot, we want you to become a paying user. So this will incentivize that. They gamified it. It's not just like Robinhood did with trading. It's like Robinhood on super steroids as far as the gamification goes, because that's literally what they're trying to do, is gamify the thing in a positive way that makes you feel good about yourself. And the other thing, so one of the things that I think is different is that it has the same, I'm glad he said that they gamified it. So it has that same dopamine hit, because you still have leaderboards and you still have like energy and you have like XP and you've got all these things. It's like using it's like a video game in that way. But the difference is when you put it down, like it's not just a dopamine hit, it's also a serotonin hit, right? So it gives you long-term happiness because you feel productive when you're done. Like, at least this is the vast majority of people, right? They don't feel like if you go and you do something, you scroll on, Twitter or Instagram, and like you look at your phone and you're like, oh crap, I just spent 45 minutes doing nothing, right? Like scrolling. That's not the feeling that you have when you finish Duolingo. And so it's actually like it's kind of a flywheel in that way, because people feel positive about something that they're doing. Anyway, management. So that's the thesis. This is the management. I think that their CEO is one of the most underrated CEOs who doesn't get enough credit for the things that he's done in the past. So they're founder-led. The two gentlemen on the right that you see here are their founders. So there's Luis von Ahn. He's got a bachelor's in science in math from Duke, and then he went to Carnegie Mellon for his PhD in computer science. And then there's Severin Hacker, who has a bachelor's and PhD in computer science. And so these two, the reason that they started this company is actually that Severin was a graduate student of Luis von Ahn at Carnegie Mellon. But Luis von Ahn, by the time he gamified image labeling. So he actually had this app that he developed that had, it posted a picture like of a dog or something, right? And two people, it would match two people with that same image. And if they said the same thing, then they got like a certain amount of rewards. And so what they were doing, because image labeling back then was this really, really difficult thing to do, and it was valuable. And so what he did is he gamified image labeling in a way that got people to do it. And then he would sell that all that data, all these labeled images, to people to train things like AI models. And this was back in the 2000s. So he gamified that. Google actually saw it and purchased it, and it became Google Image Labeler in 2006. He co-invented CAPTCHA, which is the thing that says, "Are you a human?" And then he founded reCAPTCHA, which was the company that made it. And then he sold that to Google by 2009. So by the time he was 31 years old, he had 2 exits of entrepreneurs to Google while he was also a full-time professor. Like, super impressive. And then him and Severin, who's currently the CTO, so those are the 2 co-founders, they started this as part of their as part of his graduate coursework, and then they founded Duolingo. So awesome management team. All right. They're so good at marketing is the other thing. They're so good at marketing that they don't spend marketing dollars. That's the crazy part, or very, very few. So they get lots of viral moments, like they were in the Barbie movie. They had social media, and we'll talk about this in a second, the dead duo thing. You can see some of the stuff here on the right? The owl is a little bit, it's just slightly psychotic, right? He kind of is a little weird, but people love him. So the anecdotes that I want to share on the character design, so we'll do 2, and then the next 2 slides are the other one. So I've got a niece and a nephew. The nephew's 2 years old, right? And she sent it, or she's posted this on Instagram, but it's since been, it was on Marco Polo or some other social media. It's since unfortunately been deleted. I asked her to try to dig it back out for this, but she couldn't find it. But her little brother, the little 2-year-old, was running around the room going, "Duo, duo, duo." And she was like, "Hey, so-and-so, his name." And she's like, do you love me more or Duo more? And he goes, "Duo," and keeps running around, "Duo, duo." And then my kids, so literally I use this to get my kids to go to bed. So I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And if they get in bed before bedtime, I will do 2 lessons with them on Duolingo, like where I just do the lessons and they just watch, and it's motivation for them, like to get to bed. Like there's something about the character and the app design that is really engaging for all audiences. It's not just like adults and stuff. And then the other thing is that, so this is why, so Jeremy put out that thing that he thinks that he's shorting the stock, so he's got puts on it. And the reason why is because their marketing guru left the company. Actually, there were two people in the marketing department who left it. That is definitely like, it's not a good thing, right? You don't want to lose talent. She's obviously a very talented person. But most of Duolingo's marketing is word of mouth, much more. So they're really good at viral marketing, and you can't just replace creativity. That's really difficult. And I will see if they can continue to generate the amount of viral moments that they have in the past. But I don't think it completely kills the user growth. And the reason why is because their DNA is not spending money on marketing. So when they first launched and before, like they took years and years to do any sort of monetization at all. And so because they were just building this app and they were just raising funds through Series A and Series B and other things in order to fund it, they literally spent years and years until like from 2012 to I think 2016 or 2017. So for like 4 years, they didn't spend a single dollar on sales and marketing, except for like some salaries to like generate stuff. But in terms of buying ads, they didn't buy any ads whatsoever. And here's the quote from it, right? So we couldn't do performance marketing because performance marketing is this thing where you can pay Google $30 and they send you a user. But to me, that seemed really dumb to spend $30 to get a user when we were not going to make any money off of that user. So this was this was the mindset. And so here's a couple other, so these are literal screenshots. My 12-year-old daughter has this text group with her friends that she did like an acting class with. These are screenshots from their text chain between all these people. So like on their text, this is completely organic 12-year-old banter back and forth in like a group text, right? Is like them posting up pictures of Duolingo because they think that it's funny. Like these ones are really, really good, right? This is my friend Duo. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And then like this was an actual message that they sent to each other. Can we just take note of the fact at how many freaking pictures I have from this group chat of Duo being sus? Like literally, like you scroll through this chat and it's like them texting pictures of Duo back and forth and things that they do on the app and laughing about it. Like there's they just create like all this virality that's not necessarily like this stuff isn't going to go away because their marketing campaign went away because this stuff is in the app. This is a really long, you can pause this later. Yeah, that is exactly what the knife is for. So, but we can go through, and the reason why, so again, they couldn't spend on marketing. Yeah, so here it is, from 2012 to 2017, right? They were optimizing just to keep people in the app. So when they very first started, like their day one retention, so the people who came on day one who then came back on day two was 13%. Over that period of 5 years, they raised that up to 50%. And all they did was all these A/B tests, just hundreds of A/B tests trying to get people to stay engaged and retained on the app. And then he goes on to say, I want to kind of read the bottom part. He says, had we not done that, we probably would have spent all our time optimizing our ad pipeline and optimizing all kinds of weird stuff that ends up making you money. But I don't think it helps you grow that much. I think in retrospect, this was a very smart move. At the time, I don't think we were thinking how smart it was. We just did it. So this is one of the reasons that I think that Jeremy's probably wrong about the user growth tanking and about how the importance of their marketing people who have left. Now, again, I do think viral marketing is a key part of it, but I also think that the culture is there where they've always grown by virality. Like that's part of the DNA. It's not that, and obviously you can't create like I said, there's creativity that you can't necessarily mimic, but I assume that there's probably some other people in that department who have some of that DNA in them and that they'll be able to continue that. So is it a bear case? Sure. But I don't think it's going to be as big of a bear case as others are making it out to be, because most of their growth is word of mouth. Okay, we're going to get into some of the data right now. So this is data-driven investing. So all that's my thesis, and that's what they do right. Now we're going to say, okay, so if they are the British cycling team of SaaS, And if all these A/B tests are leading to incremental gains, you should be able to verify that in the data, and you should be able to see it. And there should be like things that you can point to and say, that's the result of an A/B test. This is what they're doing well. So first of all, the balance sheet, they have over $1 billion in cash and short-term investments and absolutely no debt. So the balance sheet is pristine. They're doing great. Here's the fundamentals. So if I were to go and teach Luis van Aan's math class for him, this would be a textbook example of something that I would use as an exponential curve, right? Like this is just consistent exponential growth. The revenue, the gross profit is straight up, right? Free cash flow and net income, they're a little bit cyclical, right? It always peaks in Q1, it comes down in Q2 and Q3, and goes back up in Q4, and then peaks again in Q1. Like it's really, that's the way their free cash flow works, right? But I love that question. It's because, sorry, this guy asked, why does Chris look like he's in an academic room in the middle of a campus somewhere? It's because I can't use my house because I have too many little kids, and because I just come to work and use one of the rooms here, whichever one I prefer at the moment.
Or you could be held against your will in an undisclosed location. So
that could be it too. Anyway, so yes, exponential growth is the result. Here's the user growth, also exponential. Now, one thing that we haven't covered is, so this is the very first dip in monthly active users. So blue is monthly active users, orange is daily active users, green is paid subscribers. This is a dip. So they made a mistake last quarter. Their CEO did. He said that he came out with this statement about how they're going AI first, and people interpreted that as we're firing people in order to use AI, which he didn't mean. And he's since come out and he has since determined, or like he's come out with statements and saying, hey, we're not firing anybody, but it didn't matter because there was a social media, like there was this thing there was a boycott, right? So people were like, stop using Duolingo because they're going AI first and they're not pro-human and this, that, and the other. So that did hurt their monthly active users in the last quarter, right? And you can also see it in the daily active users. They've said on the earnings call, they said at the time, the sentiment on their on all their social media was pretty negative, and they worked really hard to get it in a place where it's positive again. And they say that they're back to where they were prior to that snafu in terms of sentiment on social media. And they didn't try to do any of their kind of more wacky marketing tactics during that time because they just wanted to return to kind of everybody liking the app and feeling good about it first before. So this is something to keep an eye on, and this will be something that, like, moving forward also you'd like to see with their marketing department leaving. You want to see this can get back to growth and continue from there. This is the thing that I think demonstrates best how the A/B tests work and convert people, is that even as their MAUs grow and grow, their amount of daily active users divided by the monthly active users continues to increase. So this is like a demonstration of the fact that their app continues to get more engaging, continues to get simpler. Like the UX is fantastic. They've tested every last little thing about the UX. Anyway, so I love showing off this graph because this to me is you say, well, the thesis is that you get marginal gains. This is the evidence that that's actually working.
So basically, the higher that this line goes, the higher the percentage of people who use the app daily relative to the total people who use it monthly. So exactly. It's an indicator of engagement.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. Thanks, Thomas. Now, one thing that this is subscribers divided by daily active users. So basically, this is a pretty linear relationship, right? So the amount of people that they get to subscribe and to pay them for one of their two paid tiers, either super or max, so this is the conversion rate, right? So of their daily active users, a quarter of them are subscribers, essentially. And it stayed this way. I really like this tick up. I would love to see, I'd be interested to see if energy allows this to tick up, because you do have those people who are using it a lot, but we're kind of gaming the system a little bit with the hearts, and they can get past that here. So it'll be interesting because this ticked up in Q2. I would love to see if it would tick up again in Q3. This is the average revenue per daily active user. So one of the things that you'll see here, like this is trending down. A big reason for this is their initial growth was a lot in the United States, and now they're growing more internationally. And their price points are different according to the locale that they're in, right? So part of this is FX effects, right? Of the drop off. And then another part of it is just the fact that you can't charge someone from India the same amount that you're charging or China the same amount that you're charging someone from the United States. And that's another thing that they test. They consistently test the pricing on all of their tiers in order to like maximize the amount of people that convert, and in order to find the sweet spot between conversion and revenue to maximize it. So like they test everything. This is their customer acquisition cost. When they very first became public, they started to pump some money into customer acquisition. They realized that it wasn't helping them that much, and that most of the things were word of mouth, and so they actually kind of cut it off. But if you look at like so in the last year, right, they pay, call it $6-7 for a new daily active user, and they make $5 a quarter from that user, right? So they pay back. The payback period on every single new daily active user that they spend sales and marketing on is less than 3 months, or about 3 months. So they pay back really, really quick, and their sales and marketing is like really effective, and people stay engaged. This is just a graph to kind of show their operating leverage. So the blue is sales and marketing as a percentage, or so for every dollar of revenue they get, this is how many cents they spend on sales and marketing, on general and administrative, and an R&D. And so you can see all of them are coming down over time. So it scales in a way so that your fixed costs stay pretty fixed, and then as your revenue scales, your margins improve. Okay, now it's time to talk AI disruption. Okay, so this is the chart of Duolingo from, it doesn't have the time period on here. This is like 2022 all the way until yesterday. This is the launch of ChatGPT. This was a Friday. It was at the top of this candle and dropped like 8% in the day because Google came out with a headline that people can use their AI to learn English. This is when GPT-4o said, or could translate in real time, and it dropped. And down here, let's see, I didn't quite double my position, but I added a big chunk, like 60% to my position during this time right here, because I was pretty convinced that ChatGPT wasn't going to do anything to their business. And then finally, last week they reported earnings, or a couple weeks ago, they went all the way up to 450. And then that same day, we will watch this in a second, GPT-5 as one of their things said that they had a language learning game, and it tanked intraday from like 450 all the way back down to like 380 or something. And since it's continued to fall, it's kind of stabilizing now. Tell me on this chart of the fundamentals where any of that AI disruption actually changed the company. There's the launch of ChatGPT. There's Google AI can help people learn English. There's GPT-4o can translate stuff. I think this is going to continue because their moat is not language learning. Like anybody can learn a language from a book if they have enough willpower to do it. The issue is that, and the reason that I think that AI is actually a tailwind for Duolingo is that the two things that are important for AI in order to make them a tailwind and in order to make them help you is number one, you have to have data. There is no company out there. I would guess that the amount of data that Duolingo has about language learning is probably 1,000x the next company. So if anybody is going to use AI to figure out how to better teach a language, like you can bet your bottom dollar, which I have, that it's going to be Duolingo. And number two, the reason that you like, the other thing that you need in order to make AI work for you is distribution in a platform. And what's the first language platform that anybody thinks of when they go to learn a new language? It's Duolingo. So they already have the two keys to make it so that, like, I don't understand how AI is going to help other people more than it's going to help Duolingo, because anything that AI can do, Duolingo can exploit in a better way, and they're focused on that, right? Like OpenAI isn't going to spend the time building a language learning app, whereas Duolingo is going to spend the time using ChatGPT to build and better their own language app. Tanner, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think that my concerns stem from someone being able to teach a language better than Duolingo. It more stems around the idea that someone can do 90% of what Duolingo can do for essentially free. Like if
You can already do it for free.
no, I know, but with the
Go from the paid
my
tier to the
biggest
free
concern
one.
is that a tool like ChatGPT, for example, or Apple or Google ends up integrating these tools that are actually fun. Obviously, you can go to, Rosetta Stone and get the basics on how to learn, these sort of tools. But I mean, in a fun and interactive way, the same way that Apple has brought a great fitness app to their ecosystem for free, just to keep people on their ecosystem.
No, and I do think there is potential for Duolingo to get disrupted by AI. Like, it is something that I will continue to keep an eye on, right? Because you're totally right. Because there is something that, like, they possibly could, like you said, Apple could or Google could. They could do something that's good enough. I don't think that they'll get the gamification is right, because they haven't spent years and years and years developing the model that allows you to, like, that is so interactive and so honestly habit forming and addictive. That takes a lot of thought and it takes a lot of design, right? It's the same way where I don't think that anybody is going to mimic Robinhood's UX. I think that Robinhood's UX is going to continue to be best in class, because it's something that's part of their DNA, and it's something that actually is much harder to mimic than it seems on face value. But you're right that it could disrupt it. They might come out with something that is good enough that some users churn and that some of their subscribers choose to not subscribe. So it's something to keep an eye on, for sure. I agree. But I think generally speaking, it's more of a tailwind than it is a headwind.
And by the way, I'm bookmarking a whole bunch of questions that we can all ask at the end, but I want to get through the presentation first.
All right. Okay. Do we want to take the time? So this is just videos of translating and the video of the GPT. Do people want to see that? You can tell.
I think we can skip it.
Okay. So if you like, I'll send, or we can put like the links in the chat afterwards, right? For these two. The one reason this one was kind of so video one is actually from 2015. And I did that on purpose because it looks like it's an AI demo, but it's just a Google Translate demo from like 2015. And it was to make the point that you could actually translate in real time between two people back in 2015. Like that existed before Duolingo became a public company. So every time that like Duolingo sells off on like real-time translations, I laugh because it has nothing to do with anything that they actually do, right? Like translation is not the use case and has never been the use case for Duolingo. Anyway, that's kind of just a point that I want to make.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Save it for the end, dude. Just let him get through
Oh,
this.
he's good. I feel like I've been talking too much.
Yeah, we're 40 minutes in. I think it's a good time for discussion.
Bitcoin or Ethereum have been around for an extremely long period of time, but now we're starting to see, broad adoption from businesses on Ethereum, for example. Do you think that the technology back in 2015 is the same level of technology for live translation that what we're seeing today?
No,
and not what we're seeing today, but what we're going to see in 2 years from now?
No, it's obviously gotten way better. My point is just that Duolingo was never, the point of Duolingo was never to translate. Right. And people don't go to Duolingo, like you don't get the same humor and interaction talking to people. Also, another reason, like most of their users now are actually learning English. And the reason that they're learning English, well, a big part of the reason is because knowing English, like, makes you a more valuable person. And if you are a foreigner who knows English, you will get paid more than not having that skill. Like, and the reason that I go back to it, right? Like I go back to it because I learned a ton of vocabulary. Like my Spanish is actually pretty good grammatically. It's like but I'm terrible with vocabulary because I've never taken the time. I've never lived anywhere natively. Like I've spoken to, my wife's grandma and grandpa who are native speakers, but that's like the extent of my interaction. So like, yeah, exactly. Translation is just not the same as interactive education. Like it's just completely different. But like, so that's not the use case. Like that one in particular, I think is just a red herring.
We can go on.
Okay. This is what I will be watching because competition shows up in two ways every single time it happens. So you can always watch these two things for any company you think is being disrupted, and you'll be able to see it. It either shows up in lower growth because they keep their margins the same, but they start losing the growth because people go elsewhere because it's not worth the money. Or number two, their growth continues, but they start to shed margins because they're dropping prices in order to continue that growth. So in this case, if you look at the margins, like their gross profit or their gross margin is like steady flat. This tiny little dip, can you guys see my mouse? Yeah. This tiny little dip right here is because they're starting to use AI. So they're paying for tokens a little bit more. So their COGS went up a little bit in here, but it's still like 70% almost flat. And then their free cash flow margin and their net income margin are like up and to the right. And obviously there's cyclicality here. But if you start to see, like, even if these, like a free cash flow margin of around 40% is fantastic. If they can just maintain these margins from here, right, that'd be great. I think that they can probably maintain around 40% margins, maybe even slightly higher long term, as long as they're able to maintain that moat and as long as they are able to continue to stay engaged. But these are kind of the two things that you would want to see. Now, obviously, growth is probably going to continue to slow down because they're growing off a bigger base, right? You can't grow at 40% forever because in 10 years, you'd be $1 trillion company, which maybe they could be. But if that comes down slowly, I'm not concerned. But if there's like an inflection point downward in the growth, I would be concerned. So these are the things I'm going to look at in order to determine whether AI is disrupting them. This was just a post that I threw up that I said, like this is their moat. It's the fact that there's always been better ways to learn a language. There's never been more engaging, rewarding, or consistent ways to learn a new language, right? And that's always been true, and it's still true today. And so I think AI is going to be like, it's possible that you could learn it better, but you're not going to stick to it like you do with Duolingo. All right, other AI tailwinds that we haven't talked about yet. So content creation. Right, so they went from creating about 2,000 sentences per week for all of their different languages to over 100,000 because they can use AI to generate that content. So now their content for all of their languages, and especially for English and their advanced English learners, which are a big portion of their subscribers, is going way up and getting way better because they're able to generate way more content. So they can spread out to more languages, and then they can also have cross languages. So now you can like learn Korean from German, whereas before you'd have to use, if you were German wanting to learn Korean, you had to use the English version to learn Korean. So you're learning a foreign language in a foreign language, right? They can do that cross the direct link much easier across a bunch of different languages. They introduced video call with Lily. Lily is a really, really sarcastic, I'll put the link in there. But essentially, it's just you're talking to it. And so this is one of the ways that you can make 1 billion mistakes and there's absolutely no pressure, is because it's an AI, right, that you're talking to. And so they've implemented that. That's kind of the big selling feature for Duolingo Max, which is their AI tier, is that you get this video call feature. And people really enjoy it. They're trying to optimize on that one. So what they're optimizing for in all their A/B tests inside of AI is the words spoken aloud per subscriber per call. So they're just trying to get you to engage and practice. And then Duolingo Chess, which they just rolled out and already has over 1 million daily active users. It was started by 2 employees. So the implementation of it was started by 2 employees who didn't know how to code and didn't know how to play chess, right? So this is the type of thing, and it's already surpassed math and music as far as daily active users. So like, there's just so much. So in the long term, right? In the short term, language matters a lot. And it's always going to be their core business, at least for the next little while. I think long term with AI, What you get with Duolingo is it's not just a language learning app, it's an education platform that's engaging and that can help people learn. Pretty much anything that's repetitive and that's difficult and that it takes time to do, things exactly like math and music, right? Like my 5-year-old started doing Duolingo music because like we got him a keyboard and we were like, oh, well, we can just use this to let him play. And so he started doing that, right? And I'm super happy with that because it gives my son something really productive to do with his time that I don't have. Like, I know things about music. I am not a musical person. I can't teach him, but he's actually starting to learn like very simple stuff at 5 years old from this app. I wish I could use chess. They haven't rolled it out to Android yet, so I'm super mad. But they will. So here's one interesting thing that I wanted to highlight on this picture. So we talked about how as they go into other geographies, this numbers come down. Guess where Duolingo Max debuted with Video Call with Lily based on this chart? Any guesses?
Based on this chart, I'm not sure.
Right here where the curve stopped going down. So they introduced a higher tier and they gave it a premium feature, and now all of a sudden their ARPU stopped going down. Despite the fact that there's still the mix shift of revenue is still moving from the US, which is higher earning, to foreign countries, the mix shift generally across their user base is also to this higher tier. So like, and the more AI they get, the better they're able to do this. So anyway, just an interesting kind of tidbit. All right, we're almost there. I'll try to rush through these. So there's lots of data. We're going to talk about valuation now. So I know people have been asking about it, whether or not it's what the price is, whether or not it's a good buy right now. So this is a ton of different SaaS companies. You can see, so Duolingo is the blue one right in the middle that has never had a quarter lower than like 37% growth. That is crazy consistent growth over, what's the time period here? 4 years and a little over 4 years. Right? So 4.5 years without a single quarter less than 37% growth. Every other SaaS name that you see on here has had at least one quarter under 30%. Lots of them have had quarters under 20%. The only company recently to put up a single quarter with better growth than them is Palantir. There you go, Roy. Okay. But even like, look at like this is what's dumbfounding to me. Throughout this entire time, right, when Palantir was posting sub 20% growth rates, Duolingo was posting 40% growth rates, and just continue. Like it's so consistent, the results. It's awesome. Okay, here's their free cash flow rule of 40. I'm going to break it down to, so this is the green, kind of light green is Duolingo. Here's a bunch of those other SaaS companies. So orange is CrowdStrike, darker green is Zscaler, and Monday.com, right? You can see everybody else is trending downward compared to Duolingo of these SaaS companies. Next, this is ServiceNow, Datadog, and Snow, much more cyclical, and still nobody, like in the last, call it 2 years, nobody has put up a single quarter that's as good as Duolingo. Same thing here, right? This one Zscaler outlier was better than Duolingo. But other than that, for the last 2.5 years, no, year and a half, from Q5 2025 all the way back to like Q4 2023, nobody beats them in the rule of 40. The only exception, again, is Palantir recently, right? But even Palantir, like, so I cut this off specifically at 40% so you could see if anybody dipped below 40%. Like both Palantir and CRM had multiple quarters well below the rule of 40 over the same time period when like they're just so consistent. Like we're talking about the lowest rule of 40 here is above a 50, and like their average rule of 40 is above a 70 for years and years. Like it's crazy the amount of growth that they have, the consistency of the growth, the fact that their margins continue to get better and better, like really, really good things. Valuation, right? I like this framework from...
Shout out to Chris.
Yeah, shout out to Chris, who, yeah, Tanner's actually interviewed him before. Awesome.
I love Chris so much. This guy is unbelievable, from growth to value. Big shout out to him.
Also a big Duolingo bull, I might add. So they are squarely within either, like all these SaaS companies are somewhere in the high growth or mature growth. So the things I'm going to look at are EV per gross profit, forward PE, PEG, there you go, Roy, or price to free cash flow. And I'm going to normalize them all by growth. So here is enterprise value over gross profit over revenue growth, right? So this is like a modified PEG ratio, right? So you're dividing by growth in order to figure out. The ones that I have highlighted, oops, MDB should also be in red. The ones that are highlighted in red are not GAAP profitable in the last year. So they've got a negative PE, right? So if you look at things that are profitable, the only one that comes in below, and again, think about the fact of the consistency of excellent growth that you're getting for Duolingo compared to all these other names that we just looked at. And the only one that's priced lower than them is Monday.com. Forward PEG, same thing. Workday is the only one that's lower than them. Some of these negative numbers is because they're flipping from negative to positive, right? But, oh, this is supposed to say T, or anyway, I think I got that ticker wrong. Anyway, but among profitable core companies, their PEG is the lowest except for Workday. So second best in terms of like EV over GP, second best in terms of PEG, and the absolute best in terms of price per free cash flow over free cash flow growth at a 1.03. Like even of the ones that are unprofitable, this is the cheapest that you're paying on a free cash flow basis for the growth. So from a valuation standpoint, despite the fact that this is the best performing SaaS company in the over the long term in the entire market, you're getting it at a deal. I like to when I do valuation, I look at a lot of different things. So this is the reverse discounted cash flow model. So this answers the question. Okay, well, given the fact that the price right now today is $338 or $339, what is the growth rate built in order to get that number? The answer is 18%. So despite they're growing at like consistently 40%, over the next 10 years, if they grow at 18%, it justifies their current price. If they grow any more than that, there's upside available. This is the revenue growth rates just to compare to that 18% number. Analysts think that they'll grow 37% this year, 26% next year, and 23% the year after that. Jeremy thinks next year they'll go down to 20% because they're going to be losing subscribers. Here's the other thing. Here's the analyst long-term revision trends for Duolingo. Analyst revisions only ever go one direction on the stock. They're only ever wrong to one direction, and it's to the downside. And these are pretty big jumps, right? So in 2024 or 2023, they were estimating about 400 million in revenue. They came in above 600. They started their at under 800 for 2024. They ended up somewhere around. Oh, sorry, this is 600. So no, I can't read that. I have to look on my other screen. Oh, so they started off below 600. They ended up around 750. They started here around 900 million. They ended up at above $1 billion, right? Like, so my point is, this is what analysts expect. And for the most part, analysts have always been wrong to the downside. So I expect the numbers to be better.
Just really quickly, for people that don't look at long-term revisions like this, all of the greatest companies in the world look like this. You don't get a better chart than this. Even in skeptical companies like SoFi, which I love greatly, you'll still see dips. I can't really see a single dip here other than in fiscal year 2023, and it looks like from a penny almost.
Yeah, there was this
this is revenue, but still, this is unbelievable. A revision trend. Do you have EPS as well?
I don't in this, but it's pretty similar.
It's okay. I work with Fiscal AI, so I can pull it up. Okay,
this is a rule of 40 evaluation. So these are the same companies. I calculated their rule of 40 on free cash flow basis, right? If you are, this is kind of the trend line. If you're below this trend line, you're underpriced, right? So this is the higher you want to be. The place you'd love to buy a company is all the way over here. Super high rule of 40.
Chris, can you click the slide again so we can see your mouse? Yeah, there you go. Now we can
see it. My mouse was just on the wrong side. Right, so where you want to be is up here on the top left. You want to have a super high rule of 40 because that's good, and a super low price to sales. and you'd be right up here, which is like, and so these are, CrowdStrike, Zscaler, Shopify, Snow, Now, DDog, etc. Like they're all pretty close to this. The distance from this trend line to where you are is a measure of how undervalued or overvalued you are, essentially, right? Because this is, if everything was like trended exactly with the rule of 40, everybody would be on this line. So Duolingo is the most undervalued of all of these names by a wide margin. And I would put a caveat for CrowdStrike. They have been intentionally taking their margins and their growth rate over the last year because of the snafu that they had, right? So this, honestly, CrowdStrike, if they wouldn't have had that snafu, they'd probably be up in the 60% range-ish just on their margins alone. So like that one is kind of an outlier, and that would make it a little bit different. And then I threw this one in there also for Roy. There's Palantir on that exact same graph.
Yeah, I knew why you didn't include it because it's a little,
because it throws off, it skews the entire thing, right?
It
Just
does.
because it's so highly priced. I will choose my language very carefully. It's a very expensive stock on a price to sales basis. Okay, conclusion. We're finally done. Sorry, I'm long-winded in my articles and I'm long-winded in this.
Yes, don't apologize, dude.
This is a deep dive, right?
Keep in mind, 500 people that are watching this. Chris put this all together, and this is all 1 hour of free content on Duolingo. It's incredibly detailed, so thank you, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, I put this together. Well, we actually put this together. I was on vacation. I came back Sunday. I did this yesterday. Okay, so here's the reasons, right? So it's the most consistently exceptional SaaS company in public markets and has been for the last 3 years. Its valuation is low compared to its peers. Like I said, AI disruption is a concern, but I think there's more tailwinds than there are headwinds. Like Rule of 40 is just phenomenal. They have 130 million monthly active users. There's over 2 billion people right now worldwide that are learning another language. There are over 2 billion people who want to learn English alone. Not all of them are learning another language. People who are actively trying to learn another language, there's about 2 billion people. And I didn't even, I scratched the surface on math, on music, on Duolingo, ABC, and on chess, and their other vectors that they have going forward. So the TAM is going to be expanding, and I really think they built a platform that will allow them to really take advantage of all those things. And this is, so again, the Dead Duo viral thing, which had over 1 billion views. And actually, so they've been trying for 2 years to get Dua Lipa to say something about Duolingo, and they finally did with the Dead Duo campaign, and they were super excited. But this is how it ended: is this guy popped up out of a fake coffin and said, "Legends never die," and Duolingo came back to life. Well, Duo came back to life. Okay, questions.
Okay, let me pull this down for just a second. This was a fantastic presentation. I have 33 comments that I have bookmarked, so keep that in mind. We're already at an hour, and some of the questions are repeats, but we can tackle them as we go. Shall I go straight to the audience questions, or do you guys have questions first, Roy or Tanner?
Most of my questions are actually in the audience ones. I looked at the start stuff, so I think that it's okay to start there. Tanner, if you have questions,
I do have a couple questions. One, has management ever said anything about becoming a multiple application type thing? I just did a quick Google search. It looks like they have 2 apps, I guess, Duolingo and then Duolingo ABC.
So everything right now is inside of the whole app. Actually, one of the things that they said in their last earnings call that the CEO said is, he said, right now we're not doing a great job of making it really simple and easy to switch between, because more and more now we have more and more people who are not just learning, they're learning Italian and chess. And there's a little bit of friction there in the app, and that's something they're going to be actively working on. So they haven't talked about splitting the app at all. They've done everything in the same app. But it is something that they're focused on and trying to do better.
Yeah, and then any B2B aspirations or anything along these lines where they're selling, licenses to high schools or something?
One of the things, so I don't know if they're selling to other educators.
They have partnerships with like language tests, like
That's what I was going to mention. So they've got an English language test that a lot of accredited universities will accept, and they do charge for that. So foreigners who are applying to U.S. Secondary educations like universities, they can have like they can get their Duolingo certification, and it's like a pretty hard test that allows people to verify that you can actually speak English. So that actually is, and that part of their revenue actually is decreasing because there's less visas being given out to foreign students right now.
Yeah, it's still being used massively. I worked for Liberty University previously. I think it was in 2023 that they rolled out the announcement to us, like, oh, instead of the TOEFL test of English, whatever it stands for, that's an international test. There's a couple of them, IELTS and stuff. They said instead of using those, you can actually use the Duolingo test as well, which was cheaper for a lot of students. I actually didn't see it gain as much traction as I expected at the time. I don't know if that was a Liberty thing because we just didn't make it like it was out there, but it wasn't like we were broadcasting it for Duolingo. It was just like, hey, if you want to use this, it's fine. So I was just kind of curious. So that was a good question, Tanner, because that was one I didn't see in the start comments. What about, like, I know in high schools, and there are some colleges as well that use Duolingo specifically for their class environment. Is that the individual signing up for their own license and use, or is that a case of business to business where they're like, okay, here you go, here's your license?
I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
And then what was I going to ask? I just had a question. Oh, you said that it's TAM expanding because many people are starting with Duolingo. Have they said anything about their TAM out? Like, obviously there's the educational space, but where they're going next, or is it just music and chess that they've sort of branched out from language, or are there other? I know Duolingo math is a big one too, right?
It's math, music, and chess is what they have. They said in this earnings call that they don't have anything in the immediate future that they're working on. But I mean, chess was started 8 months before it was launched in the app. So like it was generated really, really quickly. Yeah.
And then have they done any mid or long term, like expectations for growth going forward? Like, what does management say 3 years out revenue CAGR is going to be?
I don't think they've given any medium or long-term expectations.
Investor days or anything like that? No.
It was interesting, Chris, that the chess was started by people who don't know how to code, nor do they know chess, which sort of got me thinking around this slight different model. It would be interesting to see if Duolingo can experiment with individuals creating their own courses, where it's basically less of a Netflix original type of content model and more of a YouTube type of content model that's upvoted by the community. Because I mean, I know those were the individuals like in the company, and it wasn't a group of random individuals, but it just seems like such a more evergreen type of area where you can have individuals popping up with different courses across the board.
And there's lots of interaction. How many of you guys do any of you guys use the app? I know Roy's family does. I don't know if he does.
Not anymore, but we did in COVID.
Okay. Tavis, have you used it, or do you use it?
I have used it. I recently, when I started investing, I re-downloaded it and was checking it out again.
So one of the things that they've leaned into a lot is like the social aspect of it, right? So like you can give your friend a high five for getting certain XP or reaching a level or whatever. Like I get those notifications all the time now from like my friends who live in Norway, right? Or they'll like send you like 3x bonus or three times XP bonus for like 30 minutes or stuff. And so I do think that they're trying to lean in a little bit more to that social aspect, and that could be something that they do. I don't know. I mean, what I would be concerned about is the fact that lots of kids use this. So like if you've got user content being uploaded, you'd have to be really careful with what type of content. And it would probably have to be in some sort of a walled garden, would be my guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know how freely they'd be able to do it.
I have one question, and then everything else is covered by the chat. And I'm going to throw it up here because Roy and I were tagged in this recently. around this like political side of Duolingo's curation. Basically, this person posted that they took a dig at J.K. Rowling for her politics in the actual lesson, saying, what was it saying? Like, I like Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Mean. So, I mean, what's your thought on that? Like, I guess it's a wider point on just companies and political stances in general. But is that anything to be concerned about?
There is. So Luis von Ahn is very liberal. He publicly endorsed Kamala Harris during the last campaign in like September, I think, maybe October. So during the election, in the app, they like, for example, that there's often in some of the stories that they do, there will be same-sex relationships, right? Between like girls and girls and boys and stuff. So some people don't like that because there is a little bit of that like woke stuff that's in the app. I don't think that it's like, it's not pernicious. I don't think, like, I use the app all the time. I notice it, but it doesn't really, like, I don't really care that much. Other people do, obviously, right? So there is that aspect to it. And there is that political thing where, I mean, he's not overly political, right? He's not going out and sharing a bunch of stuff. But some of that is in the app. And then like every once in a while, he'll tweet something and he's just like, he has his opinions, and I think that's fine. But if like it is something that might crop up, or that does crop up from time to time, like, for example, in that tweet.
Yeah, I think this is also a good call out. I've been talking about this, the DuoCon, September 16th coming up, their product day, basically. Chris, anything you are thinking here around them possibly announcing?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't follow them well enough to really be able to predict what they're going to do. One of the comments was, it said the same-sex advertising to kids, yikes. I would say it's not really like, if you're not, like, my 5-year-old wouldn't even realize that, like, it's not like it has two characters up. It's like girls talking to each other in a foreign language that he doesn't understand, that are talking about like going out together later that day. It's not like, it's not overt, right? In the way that but it is there. So I wouldn't say that it's like advertising that. I think that's
it's there. It's intentional. It's obvious to adults.
Yeah.
I think the subtlety might be part of the reason why they do it that way. There may be an agenda there. They're very strongly for LGBTQ rights.
Yeah, they are.
People like it or not, that's the way it is. But I remember like during COVID, it surprised me the first time I saw it. It was like a woman up there, and she's like, "My wife, blah blah blah." I'm like, I wonder if that was something that they typed wrong. And when I kept seeing it, I was like, no, this is very intentional. So,
yeah, and like for Gay Pride Month, they like change their colors to all rainbow and that sort of thing. So it is intentional, right? Like it's part of I think part of their company culture that they want to stand for these types of things.
Yeah, and I think that there's, I mean, that's one of my concerns too. And we'll get to some comments that say that is basically that there is, I think, some brand image that they've done to themselves with the AI first stuff. Maybe some of that was recovered with the New York Times post. And I'm not going to write that off the list because I said it. But the other thing that I wanted to mention too is, as far as these extra learning modules, I think where Duolingo is going to really succeed and really do well is any discipline. So chess, music, math, certainly are these, as well as language, where you really need to practice on a regular routine basis to be able to improve. So something like learning calculus, that'll do great, versus like learning the history of the Byzantine Empire. That's awesome, but Duolingo is not the right platform for that. Or it can probably do it, but it's not going to be so compelling the way that they structured it. But there's still a lot of verticals that they can go.
Well, that would be my hope if I were to, get into this type of stock, is that they will eventually try to tackle every segment. And the thing that is, unique to Duolingo is the gamification and the, fact that people want to come back. I think that is probably harder to replicate than people would ever give it credit for. And especially if they have an ecosystem, it can kind of, they could build on, your levels in different subjects and try to rate you versus your peers, and who knows, but that could be really fun. Maybe even a TikTok like thing where they're more education based and actually like almost like what China's version of TikTok is. Maybe Duolingo does something along those lines.
One
But
thing I gave one real quick, Tanner, on that
Yep.
point. I think one of the things that they also do that makes it so even if you know where you're going in a business, the path can change with other things. So, for example, right, millennials are going to engage with an app different from a Gen Z user, different from my kids, right? And if you continually A/B test things, it's not just necessarily that you're making your way to like your destination and you just draw a straight line, but sometimes that path changes based on cultural issues, and it also changes based on like geographies too, right? So they will test things in different geographies, and in like Japan it works really well, and in the US it doesn't. And so like I think part of the thing that also helps is the fact that they are constantly going back and reiterating and relearning and re-innovating on all of their tests that allows them to also shift with the times and to shift their business model to fit their users better. Like there's really organic changes that happen.
Right. One of the concerns or potential things to highlight, I guess, Chris, is maybe you can talk about it. The percentage of revenue that they have coming outside of North America, because people learning English is a massive, market for them, and they always have to account for like FX and international revenue as a result of this, and that's something that actually surprised me. And in retrospect, it makes perfect sense. But when I was first listening to the earnings call and reading the report, the I didn't intuitively think that the biggest cohort of users would be ones trying to learn English that don't live in North America. And I would imagine that those individuals have a lower, lifetime value, let's say, than people who live in North America that are more affluent.
So if you throw this up, it does have, so this is by year, right? But they stopped reporting it last year. Before that, they were reporting it where it was like United States, United Kingdom, and then the rest of the world. But they've stopped breaking it out. So we no longer have those, unfortunately. And they kind of, so anyway, the last one that we had, right, was back in 2023. But you can also see, so here's the revenue breakdown. The other product, so the in-app purchases includes here's the English test, right? So you're looking at, call it $40 million of their revenue. Advertising, because if you're on the free model, you have to deal with ads. But the bulk of their revenue is the subscription revenue, and it's recurring in that way. But this is kind of a breakdown of kind of the type of revenue that they have.
Okay, sorry, Dan, do you have a question, or do you want me to throw up an audience?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so let's pivot a little bit. On the marketing director that just left, she was actually I think, first hire on the social media team straight out of college. And then she was also the one that basically scaled their TikTok to be over 16 million followers in like 3 years, and very much directly responsible for their viral social media campaigns. She's leaving along with another individual on her team. They both announced this week. Chris, do you think that like there's some risk there of Duolingo losing that secret sauce on the viral social media side?
Yeah, I mean, we covered that kind of during the presentation. I think that there's risk there for sure, right? Like, she's obviously a very talented individual, and creativity is difficult, right, to replace. There's some people who just like have special, unique abilities in that way, and it's hard to mimic that. I do think that I hope that the DNA stays, right? That there's some things, but it's something to be mindful of, and that is definite bear case. I think the fact that, I think the last time I heard something, and this might be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I think like they say that like 80% of their users, when they poll them, come by word of mouth, rather than like social media or virality. And I don't think that she specifically, obviously she comes up with this, with like the marketing stuff probably in the app too, but I think there's a lot more people involved with like what Duo does in the app than just the marketing team. So I think they'll be okay based on the fact that word of mouth still and will continue to be, and just brand awareness, right? Like if you want to start learning a language, almost the first place everybody goes is Duolingo.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I just looked real quick on her. Zyria, I'm not sure if that's right. Parves, she joined right out of school in 2020. And I don't. There's not many people that would look at her and be like, oh yeah, she's okay or mediocre when it comes to social media management. Usually, when you have somebody that high of tier and that high of caliber, they're not only great at their job, but they're also able to, if given time, and she seemed very social as well, be able to train up and recruit people behind her, which may not be a one-for-one replacement. I know there have been some other departures as well. But in this case, she'd been there long enough. She was good enough. And just seeing the way that she talks about her team, I don't really have much concern there, although it is worth acknowledging.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, really highly qualified and skilled people like to work with other really highly qualified and skilled people, right? Like you don't hold on to people for very long if you have like really excellent people in really crappy jobs, or even if it's a good job, but you're surrounded by people you don't like working with. And
I like where Harry's mind is at. I know I don't want to distract from this, but PayPal is hiring a CEO communicator person. I can't remember what the
for the CEO.
Yeah.
Man, if she goes there for Alex Chris, oh man, I'm going to be really excited. She's great.
Yeah, she posted on her, because I follow her on LinkedIn, and she posted that she was just like, I can't believe it got so much attention that I was leaving, and I'm leaving for something better. She's 26, so she was like, it's normal for me to be looking for new career roles. Okay, moving on, because we have a lot of questions to get through. Do they have?
We'll do lightning round. I don't know anything about patents. They probably have some. I mean, he co-invented CAPTCHA. I think that he owned the patent on that. They probably have some stuff.
Okay. Let me see if I can find another one for you. So I think this was one of the Jeremy questions, but Heinz asks, will subscriber costs be expected to rise or decline?
Whatever maximizes the long-term value of the subscriber. It will go up and down based on all the A/B tests they do. They're constant.
Which I love, by the way. I love the fact whenever you said that they choose community growth over monetization, that usually pans out very well. I mean, that we saw that a lot through Nubank, like, giving customers their money back if they felt like they've been wronged. But like, who cares about the revenue today whenever it's keeping a customer for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Is it a bargain right now? I think we answered this.
I mean, I still wouldn't call it a bargain necessarily, right? It's trading at like 18 times trailing sales, 14 times forward sales, right? So that's pretty expensive for a company. But given the performance, I am active. Like I said, at one point I had an under $100 average. It is currently $338, and I am currently DCAing. So for whatever that's worth.
I 100% agree. Doom scrolling feels bad, but Duolingo doesn't feel terrible when I've spent an hour playing because it's productive. So I think there is something to be said about people absolving themselves of wasting time because they're doing it on a language learning app. Question for later: how fast, if at all, Chris, are they gamifying Skillshare breadth of products? Not sure.
What is that? I'm not sure what that means. Skillshare breadth of products.
Yeah.
Maybe they're talking about the Skillshare, the app, but yeah.
Well, maybe you can ask. Maybe you can answer the breadth of products. Like, what is the velocity by which they're introducing new subjects?
I wouldn't like. Again, they talked about this on the earnings call.
They have 4, not very fast.
They've only got 4, and they don't have any planned in the
No, not necessarily, Tanner. They only have 4 if you're looking at it from that macro view. But like, they've been consistently introducing new languages.
That's also true. Like they're growing their languages, and the other thing is that they have they also just let things go organically for a little while in every single new geography where they come in. They'll just launch the app and they won't do anything else. And then eventually, once it starts to get traction a little bit, then they'll put a social media manager for that language and for that geography, and they'll start generating TikTok content. They'll create a TikTok in that language. They'll like start translating. They'll send someone. They'll hire somebody who's like culturally in with that country and knows the culture well, so that they can create things that are more viral in there. So they let it grow organically at first, and then they start to actually get in there and they start to monetize and other things. The other thing, I guess, Max is right now, so that call with Lily, that's only available in certain languages, and they're going to be able to scale that really quickly too.
Here's a clarification. Skillshare is a site that teaches people about many subjects through professional explaining. Was just an example because I'd want Duo's game on similar expansions.
Okay, I don't know.
I used to use Skillshare a while ago.
So I mean, the breadth of products, I wouldn't say that it's a fast. So the breadth of languages is probably a higher priority than the breadth of products. But if chess really continues to take off, right, and it like they always say like math and music and chess, we're like it's something we're just letting kind of grow. The revenue from them is small. But if they start to see like real growth in one of those, I think they'd probably start to lean in.
Maybe you can walk through the social media backlash recently. We got a couple of questions around this and why the stock fell so much as a result of this.
So Luis van On kind of came out and he said, hey, we are going to be an AI first company, and we are going to lean in AI, and AI is going to be a part of everything that we do. And social media interpreted that as we are going to fire people and let computers do all of the work for us. And that was the backlash, right? Is the fact that people were against the fact that they're trying to scale AI. What he meant is the fact that he wants basically everybody in the company to be engaged with AI, like across all of their departments. They have trainings on AI where they go in, they have people like build something, they have people build an app that have never coded before, where they do things like they are trying to get all of the, like across the entire company, they're trying to get all of their employees to utilize AI in everything that they do. But that caused a lot of pushback, and literally people started a boycott of Duolingo because of it. Like there was a social media backlash.
I'm just going to refresh. I'm still here. It's just this app is just lagging out like crazy.
I think the main reason that it came down in May, so it was a result of that social media backlash. And then the second reason was just this AI disruption narrative. Like people have been convinced over and over and over that Duolingo, despite the fact that, and this Q2 earnings would have been the quarter where they should have put up crappy growth and where they should have put up lower margins, and they didn't. Like that's the thing, is that their Q2 margins this year were better than their Q2 margins last year. And this was the first quarter in the last year that they had 43% growth, where they were like 38, 37, 36. So they had more growth in revenue, and they had more growth in bookings. Bookings is so typically these subscribers, they pay for a full year, but you only recognize like a quarter of it in each quarter as it comes in. So their bookings grew faster than their revenue. So their deferred revenue that they're going to realize in the future actually grew faster than 43% this quarter. So this was the quarter where you've got the AI is disrupting thing, you've got social media backlash and other things, and this should have been the quarter when they failed, and that's why it was coming down. And that's also why it popped like 30% on the day of earnings, is because those earnings were so stellar. But then ChatGPT came out with this thing where they can make an app that on the same day, and it's sold off.
I'm going to bring up the next question. I just want to highlight this comment by Samir because I think it's amazing. They run 750 A/B tests per quarter, and half of them are successful. I don't know if you can validate that number, but that seems incredibly bullish from a product perspective, if that's the case.
Yeah, I know that they're constantly running it. I don't remember seeing the number in my due diligence here. I probably ran across it sometime over the past years, but I have no idea. I can't verify it, but that sounds right.
That's great. That's like 250 A/B tests a month. What is going on? That's crazy.
And not all of them are in the app, right? So some of them will be marketing A/B tests. Some of it will be not all of it. There's some that are really big, like the Energy Hearts one is a huge dynamic in their app. Most of them are small and minor.
Yeah, that's goes back to what Chris was talking about in the very beginning, the incremental, like make it just a little bit better, and you continue to do that, and you have an amazing moat. The more impressive than 750 to me, at least, is half of them being successful.
And I
That's
do know
pretty
they're using AI to ask, like, to try to generate more tests. Like they're using AI to say what else could, like, as a way to brainstorm additional tests.
That part is not as impressive to me. It's either going to be variant A or variant B. So it's like, I would imagine the tests are not so crazy that like variant B is drastically different from A.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so there's a couple of different, like, I'm grouping them. So I'm going to throw 3 or 4 at the same topic. So one of them is around the efficacy. So Jesse says, we use this in Spanish class. Do they sell to schools?
And we have something, there's some sort of school, there's a Duolingo for schools, and I think the instructor gets it free, and there's other things, but I haven't looked into it though, so I'm not an expert.
Okay, now this is the topic that I want to bring up. Josiah says, I live in the DR and many use Duolingo to learn, but most I know learned English through physical classes. And I want to pair that with Samir, who asks about the efficacy of Duolingo. Does it actually work? So there's a bunch of comments that say, like, this is not the most efficient way to learn a language or the best way to learn a language.
Let me actually take that, if that's all right. I've done a lot of learning in languages. I've studied like 5 different languages. I'm not fluent in any of them. Some are dead languages as well. And I've had people in the same cohort or in the same classes as well that are learning along with me. Some learn at a faster rate than I do. Others will take 2, 3, 4 years and not know and learn anything. And I see the same comments about Duolingo. And it just depends on what you're wanting to get out of the platform. If you're just on Duolingo just to show, hey, I've got the streak, and you're doing the bare minimum, you're not putting in the time. You're not putting in the time. You're not going to learn it effectively. And also you still need to practice it in the real world. It does a good job of helping you get over the fear of making mistakes. But you just have to go out and speak with people in the real world ultimately. But if you're somebody that actually wants to learn from the platform, I've used Duolingo for Spanish during COVID. I knew some Spanish going in, but I was like, okay, why don't I go ahead and brush up? Because my Spanish was geared in like 3 categories, and one of those was food, la comida. So I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and round out my Spanish a good bit. And I found it to be highly, highly effective. But the reason why is I was not there to just simply check in for a streak. I was not like going to a class and just showing up to get a grade. I was there to freaking learn the language. So it just depends on what you're wanting to learn. But myself, I've had real in classroom learning. I've had in person learning, like when you're thrust over there overseas and you have to learn the language, or not quite die, but to really succeed. Of course, that's the best. But second best out of anything that I've used before has been Duolingo. So I think it's highly effective, but it depends on what you're actually wanting to get out of the platform. If you want to learn, you will learn.
Yeah, I've improved my, like I said, my vocabulary in Spanish is way better because of Duolingo. Just because, like, I just get a lot. Again, my grammar's pretty good, but I never spoke it enough. And so the fact that I do it daily, or pretty much daily, right, allows me to learn new words consistently, and I feel more confident speaking. I do think that the video call with Lily will actually help a lot of people, because speaking a language is different, and getting actual real world practice, I think that does improve the efficacy. But I agree with Roy. That is what you put in.
So a bunch of questions around Rosetta Stone. We didn't really talk a lot about competition. Rosetta Stone is considered better by some than Duolingo as a language platform here in the UK, Harry says. And then Barry also asks, DoD uses Rosetta Stone, have to be highly motivated and mandatory by instructor. I like Duolingo's gamification, but I can't see past limited growth. I think there's another one. I'll bring it up if I can find it.
So I think Rosetta Stone probably is more efficacious, but it goes back to that thing that the CEO said, where he said most education apps try to teach something and they optimize for outcomes and for teaching, and they don't optimize for engagement. And so for, like, if you really are devoted, like if you're in the DoD, right, and you need to learn a language, there's better tools out there. There's always been better tools than Duolingo. So that's not their moat. That's also not that's not their strong suit. That's not what they're trying to optimize for. They're trying to optimize for getting people continually learning and progressing, but at their own pace.
And let me add there, I've used Rosetta Stone. We've homeschooled our kids for a number of years, not all the time, but one of the years we bought Rosetta Stone, I think it was Spanish 1. I did it completely, and my boys did it completely. My daughter was too young at the time. The moment we were done with Spanish, they were done with Spanish. Versus in COVID, my oldest son, he picked up some Korean, and he was very interested in Korean. And my daughter was like, they were basically learning because it was fun for them, and they enjoyed the challenge. Versus like you have to learn. Rosetta Stone's solid. I think Duolingo is better.
Cool. It's an hour and 30, so I'm gonna run through a bunch of these questions. Maybe we can do a rapid fire. Yeah.
Okay.
Did he cover membership cost, increased frequency, and amount? Do we know?
It's constantly changing. I think right now it's like $7 for. Oh, I don't know. I could look it up, but I think it was like 7 for Super and like 10 for Max. So Super is removing ads, basically, and then Max is the extra AI features.
In one word or less, Chris, SoFi or Dual, which would you buy right now if you didn't own either?
SoFi.
Are you concerned about the PE ratio?
No, because they're still pretty recently profitable. And so I don't think that it's the right metric to look at. Their PEG is not egregious, especially for a SaaS company. SaaS, you're always going to pay more for a SaaS company no matter what. But it's always going to trade at a premium. But their free cash flow metrics look really, really good, and that's what I care about more.
Hey, can I add one quick thing on Duolingo too? Like this, you look at the share price, like man, $350, $400, $500 a share. This is a massive company. $15 billion market cap. It's not. It's too small to get in the S&P 500. So there's with their TAM, there's a lot of room for growth. They're not optimized for PE. So I agree with Chris here. Right?
Okay. Super Duolingo is $13 a month. Max is $30 a month, and you can also get you get a discount if you pay for an annual subscription. That's the current pricing in the US, but in other geographies, it's completely different.
A couple of questions on the total addressable market, so I'll bring them up here as I find them. My biggest concern for Duolingo is the TAM is large enough for them to continue growing fast enough over the next 5 to 10 years to justify this valuation.
I thought you were going to ask another one. So they're at like 6% penetration on people who are actively learning another language. Like every single time, they get this question a lot on earnings calls and investor stuff. And he always says, we haven't slowed down yet. We have no idea when that's going to happen, but we aren't seeing it right now. So I don't know. And they're also, again, they're expanding into other subjects too. So they expand the TAM over time.
Got it. Yep. Can this bump up for 2 to 3 more years? I think you answered that with the expansion, but maybe I can pair that with this other question.
I mean, these were the same questions that I was getting though in 2021 and 2022 when people were like, how many people are learning languages? How many people continue to learn languages? And they've had 40% year-over-year user growth. Like it's just an exponential, right? Like you'll be able to see in the data when that starts to turn, and maybe it'll come down at that point, but they can also just turn it into a free cash flow machine at that point too.
Do you think the stock is going to have a sentiment problem for the foreseeable future? Like, I don't know how they break out of that if everyone constantly looms over AI is going to take that. I mean, that could be a 10, even if they continue to grow for the next 10 years, could still be a 10-year looming sentiment.
You mean like fair values on your loans?
Well,
or
yeah,
you're a bank, you should be priced as a bank, right? Like at some point, yes, it will probably be an overhang forever. But at some point, the fundamentals start to shine through.
I saw this in one of the comments.
The models get better, though.
I know. So we'll do Duolingo.
I saw this, Tanner, in one of the comments, and I forgot to bookmark it, but basically the comment said, like, Duolingo is always going to have the AI overhang just like Adobe does, and they will still grow regardless.
I don't want Adobe stock either, though.
Well, let me bring up actually the AI. So there's a bunch of stuff with AI. There's no mode against AI revolution, especially languages. How we engage with AI tools is very different from how we engage on Duolingo. What would be the
how you engage on AI tools is going to change drastically. I mean, like,
but it's always going to be. Here's the thing about AI tools is like somebody's going to have to build a dedicated language port something in order. Like I'm not going to be able to go to ChatGPT and give it the type of prompt that it needs. I guess maybe if someone just workshops the prompt so that it works for everybody. But I highly doubt somebody's going to be like, what does it look like if AI is really good at teaching languages? It looks like Duolingo.
I know, but then the app that's offering that doesn't have to charge $15 to $30 a month.
But they're not going to be as good. Like I get, like here's
I get
I
that,
understand the disruption argument. I think that it's there. I think that you'll see it in the
two
data.
people that didn't know how to code or play chess made their most popular product.
I wouldn't
So,
say
like,
it's not their most popular, but it is. But that's the
or
thing. It's
fastest
because they
growing
already
product
have,
or whatever.
because
You know, like,
again, the big thing is they've got AI needs a platform and AI needs data. And nobody has a better platform and nobody has more data than Duolingo. And I understand the margin argument, and you'll see it in the margins.
yeah, I don't even think right now I'm worried about, like, overall, I actually think you gave a really compelling presentation. I really enjoyed it. I thought the slides were awesome. And I love everything about this team. The CEO and everything sounds great, but I still feel like this is getting put in like the, AI is coming a little too quick for me to feel comfortable with this valuation. I don't know, guys. I mean, it's education is such an easy ad for something like Apple or Google to add on to their ecosystem.
Actually,
You
great.
said the exact same thing about Apple Pay, and that Apple Pay was going to kill everybody else because they already have the distribution. And we had this argument 2 years ago, and Apple sucked.
Yeah, but it still garnered millions of users, and
but it didn't
it's
kill
still
anyone.
doing amazingly.
But the leaders in fintech are still the leaders in fintech.
Yeah, but the fintech TAM's a lot bigger than the language learning TAM.
But it's not bigger than the education TAM.
So
I get that, but first off, their whole way that they make money is through language learning. So if I think about a future where people are wearing Meta glasses or earbuds that are live translating, that is that's not just learning a language. That's like person-to-person interaction. So the idea that I don't know. I see people sink, like even Chris from Growth to Value is very bullish on Duolingo because he sunk like 1,400 days on a streak. Seems like such a large wasted time for something that might get done live. I mean, there's not even translators between world leaders anymore. They just have earpieces.
Does all the due diligence that you've done on companies, is it a giant waste of time because you've done it every day for the last 1,400 days? No, because you build skills and you enjoy it. The people who use Duolingo like using Duolingo.
I get that, but it's harder to, with companies, they need to continue to grow, but also expand margin. It's harder to expand margin while competition is growing at the fastest rate it's ever going to see for Duolingo.
No, I agree that that AI is a potential disruptor, but I just don't think anybody has the tools that Duolingo does to take advantage of AI. Even they have the exact thing that you need in order to make more money with AI by teaching people languages.
Yeah, I mean,
what's it going to look like, Tanner? Like
exactly
when people
like
say,
Duolingo.
what does AI disruption look like? It's going to look exactly like Duo. Okay,
I know, but it doesn't have to be owned by Duolingo.
Someone's going to come along and they're going to steal Robinhoods, and they're just going to code up Robinhood, and they're going to make it just as gamified, and they're going to have the exact same margins, and it's going to be like they're going to take over Robinhoods. And SoFi too.
Because Robinhood is like a pure product company, let's say. It's like saying, well, JP Morgan, if they really wanted to, they can crush Robinhood tomorrow. It's the same argument, right?
Yes, but the problem is that with finance, the margins are huge and the TAM is unbelievable. And there are a lot of Robinhood competitors. So
there's a lot of Duolingo competitors. I get because I study Duolingo all the time. I get ads for Duolingo competitors all over the place. like constantly. And a bunch of them are like AI startups that use AI to do stuff. None of them are gaining any traction, and most of them have gone broke because I've been following them. Like most of them have disappeared.
I mean, yeah, that would be the that's the hope, right? But there's
and on that previous comment, what was it? Where it said, how can this small company compete with with companies that have unlimited resources? They're going to leverage it. They have access to Gemini and GPT-5 and everything else. Like they are leveraging the tools that the big companies are building.
Yeah, I like this answer as well. Like the entertainment piece, I think is a large driving factor of why people use it and of the engagement that they use on the app.
So again, I'm not saying there is a risk. Like I've said that over and over. I just don't like, if there was a risk, if there was some sort of risk and AI was really good at this, at some point you will have seen it. Like ChatGPT's been out for 3 years.
Mhm.
You should have seen some sort of disruption over those 3 years, but it's not. It's a giant exponential curve.
So,
And I know it's getting better, but it's been getting better for 3 years, right? People said 3 years ago, this is going to disrupt ChatGPT, or this is going to disrupt Duolingo. And I saw the stock, and I've seen the stock fall double digits amounts on AI headlines for 3 years. The same way I've seen double digit drops on like macro fears for SoFi for 3 years, but the curve is up and to the right.
So
yeah, I think it gets harder the bigger it is, and the bigger the TAM is there's more competition even then. But
yeah, but does Apple or Google care about, like, they're making what are they making per quarter? Couple $100 million?
$1 billion, yeah.
No. Their revenue right now is $252 million last quarter. It's a rounding error.
he's talking about Duolingo.
I'm talking about, so Duolingo made $252 million off of their entire app ecosystem. Like Google and Apple don't care about that, right? Like they're not going to try to create this thing. They're not going to waste the money.
Yeah.
They have bigger fish to fry.
Okay, just a couple of questions to go through. Roy, did you want to add something before I move on?
No, it's okay.
Okay. I think this is an interesting one. Chris, do you think that it could potentially be an acquisition target in the future, given how small it is currently?
I mean, for whom? I guess for
Yeah,
Google?
absolutely not. It would be a $20 billion app. Who would buy that?
I mean, I guess Google bought his last two companies, so maybe they'll come in.
Yeah,
and
for
buy
$100 million.
them.
That's a rounding issue.
Again, I don't see it, only because I don't know who would be interested.
Can the subscription include family sharing with kids?
Yeah, they have a family plan, a paid family plan. So you can, and I think it's up to, and the other thing is people take advantage of the family plan because you can share it with a bunch of people. And they don't necessarily have to be like your immediate family. It's not like a Netflix password sharing where they crack down on it.
Mm-hmm.
Up to 6 people.
Do you see the value and quality of teaching for public education improving? If not, then Duolingo will profit. Agree, disagree? Like the more...
Going back to, I'll throw this up and I'll talk about it now. The CEO, by the way, this is one of the things I don't like, is he'll say a lot of things like this that'll make people mad. And he's been doing it a lot. One silver lining piece is usually when you get CEOs to do that, they're feeling very, very confident about their business and their position in the market. Sometimes they're incorrect. But I don't think, I think a good human teacher, we'll just use language as an example, is far better than anything AI can do now, and probably even in the distant future as well. But AI can be very, very good. And I think AI is probably already better. Like Duolingo is better than just a mediocre human teacher, frankly. So a lot of schools, I know that schools are using Duolingo as more of a supplement right now, but I think that especially if there's cuts at some point, and there may be for a couple of reasons with schools, or it might be a poor school that just can't afford and has to cut French or something like that, they may go the route where they're like, well, rather than just cut it entirely, we can at least do Duolingo and have somebody there that knows a little bit of French. They took like 2 semesters in college, then they can facilitate it. The other thing is there's a lot of things happening like this. This is one of those like little additive things, but the way that education is going, I think that there's going to be more and more demand for things like Duolingo. This is one here in Texas that actually it's in law now, but it doesn't really take effect until the next school year. But both for private schools and also for homeschooling families, they give you vouchers. And so if you're homeschooling like we are, they give us actually a fairly large chunk of money that we can use towards homeschooling books. It's much smaller than what they'd be paying if we sent our daughter to school. But so we can use that to buy whatever curriculum, including, I imagine, Duolingo, reading that bill. So I think,
Yeah,
I think
actually,
there's going to be a lot of demand for parents. Real quick, as homeschooling, I think, continues to gain adoption, that has really, like, that's one of the things that accelerated COVID a lot, is homeschooling took that next step change. There was in-home learning and a need for Duolingo because students weren't able to go to public school, but also homeschooling grew a lot too. And as that continues to be built out and things like this happens, there's a lot of parents like myself that either A, don't have the time to be like, okay, let me do all the work as far as teaching my kids Russian. It's like, I don't have the time to do that. So you use something like Duolingo, and then you as a human interject. So I think that there's a lot of TAM and acceleration just in the education verticals that are going there. But still, a great teacher is better than what AI can do. And I think it will be for a long, long time.
we're homeschooling one of our kids too, and actually in the curriculum, so we have a similar thing. It's not like a voucher, but if you apply, you can get some of your courses reimbursed, and they have courses online like this. They say, hey, if you want to, here's some language arts curriculum, and here's math curriculum, and they actually had a bunch of Duolingo courses as part of their their offering. So like it is used for that quite a bit, and we're using it with my son was in dual immersion. Spanish, and my son that we're homeschooling now, he was in Spanish and English, and we're using it to supplement. I mean, my wife is fluent in Spanish, but like she doesn't want to sit there and do tasks with my son and like repeat vocabulary words, right? So like she'll talk to him and they'll have conversations, but if he just wants to get practice, we'll send him to Duolingo.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up this school question. Is there a chance, or what would you put the probability of schools switching or doing more partnerships with Duolingo around language learning as a formalized part of the curriculum?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they'd be open to it, but I have no idea.
Is
I do
that
know that like I looked up the Duolingo for schools thing. Teachers who can do it, they can actually personalize the curriculum, and they can personalize the vocabulary words, because like it's got implementations where you can put those things in, and it'll make sure that it has those words and like the matching games and whatever else. So like they already do some kind of personalization like that. They could go to a paid tier, right? Pretty easily, and then implement it on a B2B site. They haven't done that yet. I'm pretty certain that all the Duolingo for school stuff is actually free. It's more like a management tool for the instructor, but the kids are on the free tier. But they don't get the ads. I actually think that I know the instructor doesn't get the ads. I don't know if the kids do.
Okay.
I thought this was good.
I think this was fantastic. And thank you so much, Chris, for putting all of that together. It's been a 2-hour episode. Should we invest in Duolingo? Tanner is still not convinced, but the rest of us are. And anything else to add, gents, before we sign off?
Shout out to the 7 people watching on my channel still. Thanks, guys.
Oh,
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Chris. It's always great to hear, especially one that I know a little bit about, but you're deeply familiar, and I appreciate the time you put in for this, and also that you made for tonight. Myself, as far as where I'm at with Duolingo, I don't think it's a screaming value right now, but I'd rather pay a fair price, which is where I think it is, for a great company than an excellent price for a company that's not great. So I don't know that I'll add a lot here, but if sentiment continues to sour, they have another quarter that they miss some numbers, I may add a lot. But I think that for right now, I'm just going to kind of hold, wait, and see what it does.
But if you can get an excellent company at an excellent price, PayPal.
I wouldn't say excellent yet. I think good, but yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching another episode of Stock Tank. Duolingo, just actually for reference, because these tickers go ballistic in the months after we cover them. It's actually uncanny how many have done so. Just for posterity's sake, Duolingo is at 345 right now. So we'll see where it ends up.
Good ad.
Yeah, exactly. And then let us know on X what other ticker you want us to be talking about, and who you want to present the bull case for that ticker. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead, Tanner.
Oh, wait, real quick. Somebody asked about CSPs. There's actually pretty high IV. CSPs are actually a pretty decent play, but since it's a high, like you're putting up, if you sell at the money right now, you have to be putting up 34,000 for 100 shares. Right?
We got bingo.
Yeah. I showed it, but I didn't say it. So we got bingo a little after the hour mark. Good job. We all win by being here tonight. So thanks for playing, guys. It's been fun.
Thank you, everybody. See you on the next episode. Let us know who you want next. Good night.